Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and we're doing another episode of In the Frame. Today we're going to look at Indicator's September releases. So 4 individual titles, no box sets this month. So we have Spine Number 216, this is You and Me, directed by Fritz Lang with Sylvia Sidney and George Raft. We have Spine Number 451, When Tomorrow Comes, by Irene Dunne and Charles Boyer, directed by John Stahl. You'll Never Get Rich, with Fred Astaire and Rita Hayworth, directed by Sidney Lanfield. This is 457 Spine Number. Hard to believe Indicator are nearing 500. And then we have The Lady Is Willing, with Marlene Dietrich and Fred McMurray, directed by Mitchell Leisen. So, excuse me, in all honesty, 2 out of the 4 are little gems. 1 is really good, and 1 is a clunker. You can maybe guess which ones are which before I tell you. Again, just in my opinion is not fact. The 2 little gems are perfect examples of why Indicator are so wonderful. So we'll start with Spine Number 216. This is available in Kino Lorber in the US. This is a region B only. This is from 1938, 94 minutes long. As I said, directed by Fritz Lang. And there's Fritz Lang with George Raft. So this is an odd little film. So it's sort of part romantic comedy, but then it's also part morality play. There's a wonderful sequence where Sylvia Sidney explains to George Raft and his colleagues that crime doesn't pay. So the simple setup is there's a department store run by a man who believes in employing ex-cons of various shapes and sizes. Not exclusively, but there's a lot of them, including George Raft, who, when we're introduced to him, he's telling people this is a good racket, and then the camera just pans out and he is actually selling a tennis racket, which got a huge laugh, obviously George Raft's gangster background. And he falls for Sylvia Sidney, and they get married. Of course, Sylvia Sidney doesn't tell him that she's an ex-con as well, and he's getting pressure from his old contacts to do a job involving more of the ex-cons that actually work in the department store. It has kind of broad humour, but it also has some kind of really expressionistic cinematography. There's some really impressive kind of flashback sequences that are really startlingly shot. I mean, I would say this is kind of lesser Fritz Lang. As I said, this is 1938, so it's a bit later. It's that kind of strange period in Lang's career. So this one actually has a commentary by Tony Raines from 2024. It's got a nice 23-minute piece from 2024 where Lucy Bolton discusses the life and lengthy film career of Sylvia Sidney. It is kind of funny that, as far as I'm concerned, the first thing I ever saw Sylvia Sidney in was Beetlejuice, but obviously this was somewhat before Beetlejuice. The department store opera, which is 27 minutes, with our good friend David Huckvale. He discusses Kurt Weill's music in the film and the links to Brecht, and how in some ways the film is kind of Brechtian itself. So this is really enjoyable, well paced. It has some surprises, so this one's a lot of fun. I mean, I would probably wait for a sale for this one. And then we have one of the absolute gems. This is When Tomorrow Comes, which is actually from a story by James M. Cain, who also wrote Double Indemnity and The Postman Always Rings Twice. Stahl is an interesting director, as Douglas Sirk remade 3 of his films, including this one. Stars Irene Dunne and Charles Boyer, who were in Leo McCarey's was it Love Story or Love Affair, which is available in Criterion Blu-ray, and this is a Region B as well. This is from 1939, and this is a really odd one as well. You can say kind of all 4 of these films are a little bit odd. This starts with Irene Dunne and her fellow waitresses. They're going to organise a strike or discuss going on strike. So again, as with a lot of these films from this period, it's about class. It's about employers and employees. And then she meets Charles Boyer, who's this out-of-work pianist, and they kind of strike up a sort of relationship over a couple of days, but it's very kind of sensible, not in the relationship, but I mean as far as storytelling, it's really believable, which isn't always what you would say about Hollywood kind of romances or whatever. But then they're thrust into this huge storm and they're forced to take shelter in a church, where more hijinks ensue. We find out that Charles Boyer has a wife who is a little bit mentally disturbed. So it becomes like a melodrama, adventure film, a labour film. There's wonderful comedy in it. It's got a great script. It's completely strange and weird, but it's an absolute gem. And again, as I said, this is why Indicator, their style, if you're wanting to know what style looks like, it's just so good. It's a film that perhaps shouldn't really work, but it just does. It's a film that I shouldn't actually like, but I really enjoyed it. This one again, all 4 of these you can wait for sale prices because they're never going to go out of print, I wouldn't think. But this one is an absolute gem, even though it's one of those films that I shouldn't really be interested in, but I absolutely loved it. So this has got a commentary with Eloise Ross from 2024. Stormy weather. Jeff Andrew assesses When Tomorrow Comes in its place in the career of producer-director John Stahl. The Mark of Cain is a 21-minute piece by Michael Brook, who discusses the great hard-boiled crime novelist James M. Cain, whose 1938 magazine serial A Modern Cinderella inspired When Tomorrow Comes, and its 2 remakes, and how it differs from the story as far as the film's concerned. There's a script gallery, and again a wonderful booklet. So this one is a little gem that I would highly recommend. Again, it's got lots of different pieces to it, but great performances, especially by Dunn, and it's just an absolute gem. Next is The Clunker. I probably will move off from this at some point. This is You'll Never Get Rich with Fred Astaire and Rita Hayworth. Now, I adore Rita Hayworth, who doesn't? But Fred Astaire, controversially, is somebody that I've never really understood the appeal of. Granted, I've never really understood dancing, apart from in a ritualistic mating sense, but dancing for pleasure I've never really understood at all. This is a Region B as well. This one, Fred Astaire ends up in the army and obviously wins over his army mates by dancing. Yeah, that would really go, wouldn't it? I mean, it's pleasant enough, but I did find it quite difficult to get through. There's large sections of the film where Rita Hayworth disappears and we're left with Fred Astaire, which again is pretty difficult for me. I don't really find Fred Astaire that engaging or funny or entertaining. The songs by Cole Porter, I mean, it's all very pleasant and nice, but for me it's only like a 2-star film, even with Rita Hayworth in it. So this is a 4K restoration. I mean, the prints in all these films look really good. This one's got a commentary by film historian Peter Tunget from 2024. A Radiant Star, which is 20 minutes. The critic and writer Christina Newland discusses Rita Hayworth and her acclaimed dancing partnership with Fred Astaire. Fred Astaire's approach to filmmaking from 1985, which is a 77-minute audio recording of a lecture delivered at the NFT by John Miller, author of Astaire Dancing, the films of Fred Astaire. There's a Super 8 version, cut down home cinema presentation, which is much more enjoyable, and again the booklet. So this one, definitely not my cup of tea, but again, if you're a huge fan of Fred Astaire, then obviously you would pick it up. And then another one, finally, this is another gem. It's just absolutely fantastic, directed by Michael Leeson even. This is The Lady is Willing. The title makes absolutely no sense, with Marlene Dietrich and Fred MacMurray. Marlene Dietrich is a famous actress, but this film is all about appearances and everybody not necessarily telling the truth. So she's this actress who makes lots of money but doesn't actually have any, because as soon as it comes in it goes out. And there's like a traffic jam and she ends up finding a baby and just turns up at her home with a baby, much to the bewilderment of her two personal assistants or managers and personal assistant, the wonderful Aileen McMahon, who again you'll recognise as Buddy. In all the films she's in, there's always like a subtext that she's probably a lesbian. And Stanley Ridges. And Fred MacMurray is a baby doctor who detests babies. That's why he's so good at it. Obviously Dietrich looks amazing in all her outfits, including there's a couple of key scenes with hats when the police turn up and try and recognise Dietrich is the person who essentially just steals a baby. Basically, she finds a baby and just steals it, but then it ends up that she can't adopt it unless she has money, which she doesn't. She just has the appearance of money, or if she's married. So you can kind of work out what happens. Fred MacMurray ends up being married because he wants the money to continue with his rabbit experiments to cure the common cold or the common flu. Honestly, this is true. So it's kind of a screwball, but as somebody points out in the extras, Dietrich does everything slowly, so screwball doesn't really work. But it's also melodramatic as well. There's tons of brilliant dialogue, and obviously an amazing performance by the baby Corey. It's ludicrous, but it's also quite brilliant. And again, it skates over the whole. She basically kidnaps a baby, but it's Dietrich, so she just gets away with it because she's Dietrich. But then, very much like Made for Each Other with Carole Lombard and James Stewart, the third act goes fairly seriously, as something is seriously ill with the child. Along the way, the potential real parents turn up, obviously wanting their baby back. So again, very much like a couple of the other films out of this quartet, it's a little bit of everything, but it's so much fun. Dietrich absolutely sparkles. You know, some of her early ones and some of her films with von Sternberg, the male leads are like planks of wood, whereas Fred MacMurray holds his own here, starting off as a very stiff character. There's a wonderful scene where both of them are a little bit tipsy and start singing. Again, there's lots of business with Dietrich in her hats. MacMurray's ex-wife turns up as well, just to cause more confusion. It's just an absolute joy and will put a smile on your face. And this one, along with When Tomorrow Comes, are the two that I would really highly recommend. But again, you can probably wait for next year's sale to get the limited edition version, because they're not really going to sell out. So this has got a commentary on film with starring Adrian Martin from 2024, Performance of Innocence, which is a 27-minute piece by Richard Dyer, about The Lady is Willing, strangely enough, and Marlene Dietrich's work in comedy, which is really excellent. And from 1943, there's a radio version of 52 minutes, starring George Brent and Kay Francis, which isn't quite Fred MacMurray and Marlene Dietrich. And again, you get a nice booklet. So out of the four, I would definitely recommend these two, because these are absolute gems. The Fritz Lang film is solid and entertaining enough, with some very nice scenes. And for me, You'll Never Get Rich is an absolute clunker, but again, that's just my opinion, and as we know by now, my opinion is definitely not fact. So thanks very much for watching. Please let me know if you intend to pick up any of September's Indicator releases, and hopefully join me again for more episodes of In the Frame. This is Saul Chironin from Saul Chironin Films, saying farewell.